Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 84 based on novel. So let's start. When Qin Mu saw a familiar person, he couldn't help feeling affable. Since he was young, he had always mingled around with blind and cripple. From the moment he could remember things, he was always learning all kinds of knowledge from the 9 elders of disabled elderly village. It could be said that he didn't have any playmates during his childhood days, which made them dull and dry. Even though he had only fought one match with Ming Xin, they were of the same age, so it was natural to feel affable upon meeting him again. Monk Ming Xin recited one of the many names of Buddha to suppress his own angry thoughts and smiled. "You defeated me back then, but you might not defeat me today. After losing to you, I had pondered about the painful experience and fixed my weakness. Why don't you have another battle? You changed the sutra." Qin Mu asked in astonishment. Pleased, Monk Ming said, "I was defeated when you struck my throat the previous time, so I will definitely not let you have your way this time." Qin Mu cried out, "Monk Ming Xin, how old are you? How could you change Rulai's Mahayana Sutra as you like? With your current horizons and knowledge, the more you change it, the more mistakes and flaws would take shape. Rather than carelessly changing it, wouldn't it have been better to ask Rulai and let Rulai teach you?" I also carelessly changed my technique and to the point it's beyond recognition, so I can't really say anything to you." Qin Mu blushed with shame. He had also changed his technique. An Overlord Body 3 elixir technique had been changed more than once. Great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures was even fused with his it, solving the flaw on the left shoulder. Him saying something to Monk Ming Xin about carelessly changing his technique was like the pot calling the kettle black. Maybe the other had indeed erased the flaw on his throat. Monk Ming Xin began to stir and said, "In that case, could you condescend to teach?" Qin Mu was about to say something when an old monk said, "Disciple, don't be impudent, this is Cult Master Qin of Heavenly Devil Cult." Monk Ming Xin jumped in shock and cried out, "When have you become the old devil of Heavenly Devil Cult?" Qin Mu sighed. "This is hard to explain. I didn't want to do it, but got pushed onto the seat of the cult master without the choice to refuse." He looked toward the old monk and recognized him as old monk Jing Ming. This old monk was Ming Xin's master, and his personality was very much like his name, very shrewd. He had pointed out that Qin Mu was the devil cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult not to notify Ming Xin, but to tell all the monks that were present. With the shout in his loud voice, all the monks that were studying 100 Dragons portraits looked towards Qin Mu and recited the many names of Buddha under their breath. It was evident that they all couldn't restrain themselves and suppress their thoughts of wanting to subdue the devil. Monk Ming Xin immediately said, "In that case, you should quickly withdraw and not be the devil cult master anymore, since you're going to die. There are many eminent monks who hate evil with a passion and are used to killing devils. Every time they go out, they subdue a few devils to accumulate merit, and you will be killed. I shan't compete with you, you should quickly flee down the mountain." Qin Mu shook his head. "Thank for your kind intentions, but I'm now a guest. Old Rulai is my senior brother, and he said I should be allowed to stay in the monastery. In this case, would they still subdue the devil?" Ming Xin hesitated for a moment, then said, "This, I can't say for sure. They will most likely debate with you, advising you to turn over a new leaf. If they can't talk you into it, they will most likely beat you to death." Qin Mu was speechless. He indeed saw a few monks walking over to him. Amitabha. A monk placed his palms together and raised a difficult question first. "Devil, do you dare to debate with me?" Qin Mu asked, "Have you been completely indifferent to worldly temptations?" That monk was slightly shaken. "Not yet." "Then what's the debate for?" Qin Mu broke out into laughter. "You haven't even achieved your Tao. A half-baked, fake monk like you has only the ability to flaunt misunderstandings from gossip. Fall back." That monk was tongue-tied and another monk beside him immediately said, "Devil, I shall talk to you about truth, compassion and beauty." Qin Mu asked, "Are you Rulai?" That monk's complexion turned beet red, and he replied, I'm still not Rulai. Then you haven't achieved the word truth. Qin Mu smiled. Rulai is the true state of things, receiving and achieving the word truth. If you aren't the truth yourself, how can you want to talk about truth, compassion, and beauty? Fall back, don't embarrass yourself, we will talk when you achieved that height. Don't take what you can't do and force it on me. If you want people to do as you say, you have to set an example. The monk was left speechless, and another one stretched out his hand out. Golden springs poured out from the earth, and a lotus bloomed. Buddhism has Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the highest perfect awakening, the supreme perfect wisdom. Qin Mu asked, have you achieved supreme perfect wisdom? Fall back. Another monk laughed loudly. Devil Cult Master is an eloquent and fluent speaker. Since you won't respond if I talk to you about scriptures, I shall talk to you about the secular world. Excited, Qin Mu came over to that monk and said, Great monk, don't speak first. Let me ask you, if everyone converted to Buddhism, didn't reproduce, didn't marry, had no children, wouldn't the human race be extinct 100 years later? What grudge do the humans have with you? Why do you want to eradicate the human race? The monk was stunned for a time, then said, What I want to talk to you about is that your heavenly devil cult does too much evil and the magic in your cult is evil and sinister. It uses live people to cultivate. Qin Mu didn't give him time to say more. What's that compared to eradicating the human race? The monk stared at him with wide eyes, barely holding back his anger. This is different from what I want to debate with you. In that case, let us talk about this. When I met a hall master of heavenly saint cult who used infants to cultivate, he was slain. Just now, I saw a monastery raising strange beasts at the foot of Mount Meru by mixing anesthetics with bloody meat to lie to the people. Where did the meat come from? Did they take the lives of living creatures? I dealt with the scum in my cult, it's your turn now. Go eradicate that monastery and kill all those monks. The monk was furious. This is different from what I'm debating with you. I'm going to talk about the teachings with you. Our great Thunderclap Monastery has tens of thousands of Buddhist scriptures, each and every one of them is passed down from generation to generation, teaching people to be compassionate. Qin Mu said in astonishment, if your own Buddhism hides dirt to conceal corruption, instead of cleaning it up and the monks in the monasteries aren't compassionate, how can you teach people to be compassionate? The foolish like to lecture others, but they can't do it. Oh well, did you say teachings? I'll talk to you about teachings. The path of the saint is none other than the one that can be used by common people. Can your Dharma be used by common people every day? If they can't use it, what's the point of just having it recorded in a book? If it's useless, won't it be better to just burn it? You devil. The monk was really furious now and wanted to pounce over. Preposterous arguments and harmful teachings, burning scriptures and eradicating Buddha, your devil nature is indeed very serious. I'll fight it out with you. Hold it. Qin Mu raised his hand and smiled. You want to kill me, but let me ask you, do the Buddhist scriptures allow you to take the life of a living creature? The monk stopped in his tracks and suppressed his anger. Buddhist scriptures advise people to be compassionate, to not take the life of a living creature. However, against devils, even Buddha will be angered and subdue them. Qin Mu asked, grass, is it life? Naturally, the monk said angrily. Seedlings grow from grass and many of them turn into grains, which means that grains are also lives. So why do you eat them? You have been eating vegetarian and praying to Buddha, thinking about compassion, thinking about beauty, thinking about truth, but you don't even know how many lives were lost in a mouthful of your food. Qin Mu said. The older you get, the more lives you have eaten. What face do you have to talk about Buddha's heart, to talk about compassion? He took out a flower seed from his Daotai sack and held it in his hand. When he executed Earth Eon creation technique, a soft shoot sprouted from the flower seedling and grew. Its roots broke out from their shell, and a spirit grass rose up in his hand. The plant was delicate, and a flower bud soon sprouted. It trembled gently, and a tender and lovely flower bloomed. Is it beautiful? Qin Mu asked. The monk was slightly infatuated and nodded in agreement. Beautiful. Qin Mu brought the flower to the monk and said, "This flower is the grains you eat, they are its fruits. They are a beautiful life, yet how many of them have you eaten? When are you going to pay them back? If they had spirit and cultivated into a demon, would they cry about how you ate millions and millions of their race? Do you ever think about the damned souls of countless flowers and grasses surrounding you, waiting for you to pay with your life day and night?" The monk held the beautiful flower in both of his hands as his expression became more and more defeated. He felt the beauty of the tender flower becoming sinister and terrifying, demanding his life. Suddenly, the monk sat down in a lotus position with tears rolling down his face. "I've eaten countless people from your race and my grave sins are hard to resolve. I'm willing to turn into a pile of ashes to nourish you." When he was finished with his words, the fire of karma lit up around his body and burned him cleanly in an instant. But even though the fire burned him completely, it didn't harm the beautiful flower in the slightest. It landed softly onto the ashes, still tender and lovely. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Cultivating Buddhism still comes to naught at the end, only good enough to be used as fertilizer. Qin Mu bent over and gathered the ashes together to plant the flower seedling. "Monk, you have been useless all your life, but you are finally useful after you died. This flower will grow well, and it will bear many seedlings, which will grow into even more flowers. You will be gratified if you know this in the netherworld. Even though the flower isn't the common people, but by using your ashes as fertilizer, you have indeed achieved that goal of the everyday use of common people. Excellent, you and I are of the same path." He stood up and looked around. Even though he was a youth, he had the air of a cult master about him as he said unhurriedly, "Which great monk still wants to debate with me?" The surroundings were silent. Qin Mu looked at the serious and solemn monks, but the other side immediately avoided his eyes, not daring to meet them. Old Ma and Blind had been standing far away, chatting with some old monks. When they saw what happened, Blind smiled. If Mua remains in Great Thunderclap Monastery, and the monks don't immediately make a move to slay him, with just a few days' time, half of the monks in Great Thunderclap Monastery will return to the normal life, a small half will be possessed by the devil, while those who won't will all be fake monks. He's really even more powerful than Granny Sai. Suddenly, a monk shouted sternly, "He's the devil. He's a heavenly devil, bewitching everyone with his demonic words." Another monk shouted out right after, "He used demonic words to kill senior brother Shin Kong. We can't let this devil live, kill him to get rid of the devil." In an instant, everyone was furious and shouted out their wish to subdue Qin Mu and kill the devil. At that moment, the youth started laughing with merriment, his voice growing louder and louder. The commotion around him gradually vanished, but his laughter still continued on. Once laughing subsided, Qin Mu said coldly, "You guys wanted to debate, so I debated with you. When you wanted to pull in the sect's teachings, I agreed to talk about the teachings. When you couldn't win against me, you guys talked about taking the life of a living creature. Fine with me, let's talk about taking the life of a living creature. When you couldn't succeed even in that, you guys actually want to kill me. What's the use of you cultivating Buddhism? Fall back, return to your normal life." Some monks were at a loss and their hearts became empty. After a moment, some actually sighed and really turned away, and went to pack their luggage to leave the mountain. The rest of the monks didn't fall back, but stood with unpleasant expressions. Qin Mu shook his head and smiled. "So it still comes to fighting in the end. If that's how it is, why flaunt your inadequate knowledge first?" With a roused spirit, he looked around, and his eyes flashed like lightning. "Who's coming to die?" The monks wanted to go forth when monk Ming Xin said, "Hold it, fellow senior brothers, let me subdue this devil and kill this monster." Before the monks could even say anything, monk Ming Xin had already rushed forward and winked at Qin Mu while saying in a low voice, "When you fight with me, do a few blows before admitting defeat. Once you admit defeat, they will be too embarrassed to kill you. Also, don't use devil techniques, or they will be infuriated again. The heart of this little monk isn't bad, he's much better than old monk Jing Ming." Qin Mu's gaze flickered and he smiled. "You and I shall exchange some pointers." Monk Ming Xin immediately made a move, and it was Thunderclap 8 strikes, spring thunder on the lonely East Sea. As he moved, thunder rang through the area, as though an overflowing river was surging into the sea as the spring thunder suddenly exploded. When this move was executed, it had the illusions of a divine art. The vital qi that was both in front and behind monk Ming Xin could be faintly seen transforming into majestic mountains, with the river water surging down from them. It looked like it had come from the sky and smashed into the sea. When the moves of Thunderclap 8 strikes were executed to this extent, they were almost no different from a divine art. Rulai's Mahayana Sutra of Great Thunderclap Monastery was indeed worthy of its reputation. Qin Mu also executed Thunderclap 8 strikes, which were just as impressive and majestic. Mountains and rivers, a vast sea and spring thunder, as well as world-shaking booms, exploded as the muscles on these two people flexed. The tendons were like fine dragons snaking here and there under the skin, pushing the circulation of strength to its maximum, cheering up the monks. Ming Xin, beat this devil to death, a dried-up, thin old monk shouted out. This devil actually cultivates our great Thunderclap Monastery's technique. It's a blasphemy against Buddha, so beat him to death. Qin Mu's move changed and transformed into thousand-armed Buddha, and in that instant, his palm transformed into after-images, which made it seem as though he had 1,000 arms. Each movement of a palm caused the sound of thunder, as if a huge Buddha was waving his 1,000 arms to subdue devils. All the monks had a change in expression when they saw this. Qin Mu, this devil from heavenly devil cult, had already comprehended every single essence of Thunderclap 8 strikes. Just based on this 1,000-armed Buddha, his attainments surpassed 80 to 90% of the monks in the monastery. The voices of the monks grew softer as they muttered in their hearts, "Seems like Ming Xin's attainment in this move is inferior to his, he probably can't win." Ming Xin also executed 1,000-armed Buddha to fight back, and he immediately knew that his attainments were lacking. His body trembled as he executed winning skill and expanded exponentially. Countless Buddhist scriptures surrounded his body like a huge bell which rang non-stop. The 2,000-armed Buddhas clashed, and the superior one was determined at that instant. Qin Mu's palm hit the huge bell, which was the Buddhist scriptures, and rings of Buddha rays burst forth from the wall of the bell. At this moment, where did Qin Mu look like a devil? He was clearly an eminent monk that had achieved his Tao. A young Buddha that had green dragons surrounding him as he looked extremely dignified. The next instant, monk Ming Xin saw Qin Mu's palm breaking through the huge bell and changing into a fist mudra that hit him in the heart, astonishing him. Qin Mu's fist had gone precisely through the floor in his Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. With his fist as a mudra, he exploited that flaw and went straight for the body. This strike had hit him straight in his lethal point. However, Qin Mu's fist didn't have much power. He retracted it after giving a gentle punch. The hearts of the monks calmed down. This devil's cultivation isn't high, only his moves are exquisite. Monk Ming Xin composed himself and immediately countered, only to see Qin Mu slithering around him like a dragon. With his 1,000 arms moving about, countless flaws appeared on the Buddhist scripture bell in an instant. The lethal points in the heart of his brows, his ears, his eyes, the back of his heart, his sea of qi, his jade occiput were all marked once by Qin Mu. In the blink of an eye, he had received hundreds of fatal attacks. These attacks were all aimed at the flaws of monk Ming Xin's Rulai's Mahayana scripture. He was stunned for a moment, then felt like he was a cauldron that was leaking water everywhere. There were fatal flaws everywhere, and cold sweat uncontrollably rolled down his forehead. To remove the flaw, he had acted according to his initiative and changed Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. He thought he had erased the weak spot on his throat, but instead, he had affected the rest of his body, creating more flaws in his technique. The cultivation of this devil is indeed not high. All the monks were put at ease now. If he can't break through Ming Xin's golden bell body protection, no matter how intricate his moves are, there will be no power behind his attacks. Qin Mu stopped, and monk Ming Xin came to a realization. He swiftly expressed his thanks. "Thank you, senior brother, for your guidance. Only now do I know that Rulai's Mahayana Sutra can't be carelessly changed." Qin Mu shook his head. "It's not that you cannot change, you just lack an opponent who can allow you to express your talent and potential to its fullest extent. If you had a person that had profound knowledge and wide horizons, he could push you to improve, to continuously change your technique. In that case, you would achieve perfection. Monk Ming Xin immediately looked at him, and Qin Mu shook his head again. I can't, I don't have the ability. You can go find Rulai, let him impart to you Rulai's Mahayana Sutra directly. I as your opponent will limit your improvement. Monk Ming Xin acknowledged this, but said, Rulai is all about destiny, I don't know if I have this destiny. Crap. His expression changed, and he stamped his feet. This is bad. If you had lost to me, they wouldn't be able to steel themselves to beat you to death, but now that you defeated me, they will certainly kill you. What should we do? Ming Xin, fall back. A middle-aged monk came forward with a slightly grim expression, as he scolded, Junior brother Ming Xin, aren't you too kind-hearted? This is subduing the devil, yet you held back and did not take his life. Are you going to leave this devil alive to bring chaos to the world? This is a grave sin. Monk Ming Xin opened his mouth, wanting to say something when that monk swept his sleeves at him. Are you not going to fall back and reflect on yourself? Monk Ming Xin could only fall back feeling grieved. When had I held back? I clearly executed my full strength. The middle-aged monk looked at Qin Mu and said, Cult Master Qin, you're the cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult, while I'm merely a monk with no reputation in the Heavenly Dragon Cloister of Great Thunderclap Monastery. This isn't considered the big bullying the small, right? Qin Mu smiled. It's not. I'm the big that's bullying the small. The middle-aged monk chanted one of the many names of Buddha and said, Cult Master Qin, I shall let you understand the vastness of Buddhism. Look at this dragon pillar beside you. The dragon form on this dragon pillar is one of the 100 dragons portraits of our great Thunderclap Monastery. This little monk will use it to send Devil Cult Master to paradise. Qin Mu examined the dragon pillar beside him, paying attention to the dragon portrait of a ferocious heavenly dragon. With its sharp claws clasping down, it looked like it was subduing devils. The middle-aged monk suddenly moved and came speeding over with heavy footsteps as he shouted, I hope Cult Master can be reborn into a good family in your next life, and not be a devil again. Boom. He smashed a mudra downwards, and thunder boomed. What he executed was Tempest of the 9 Dragons from Thunderclap 8 Strikes. His vital chi had transformed into a green dragon, whose form was none other than the heavenly dragon on the dragon pillar beside Qin Mu. The green dragon surged forward with bursts of thunder, just like a dragon king descending onto the world. Qin Mu retracted his gaze from the dragon pillar, and his vital chi suddenly burst forth. It was similar to Tempest of the 9 Dragons, and when the 2 dragon forms clashed, the roaring of dragons continued endlessly. 90 green dragons appeared around the 2 people, and they were the dragon force formed by the fist skills. Each person had 4 to 5 dragons. The 90 dragons clashed, as the dragon-shaped vital chi threaded around the dragon pillars to fight. Great cultivation, Senior Brother Tan Xin, all the monks cheered. When their voices faded away, the middle-aged monk couldn't resist letting out a grunt. He could feel Qin Mu's magic power overwhelming him, as the unpredictable transformations of the dragon forces in his fist left him confused. Qin Mu had also used the dragon form on the pillar, but there were 100 changes in that form, so even though Qin Mu had used one kind, the countless changes within it made his opponent unable to guard against all of them. He has received the true teachings of our heavenly dragon cloister. The eyes of the middle-aged monk revealed despair, when the 4 to 5 dragon forces formed by his vital chi instantly disintegrated. The 4 to 5 dragon forces from Qin Mu merged into one and rushed at his chest with a whoosh. Qin Mu had received the true teachings of the 100 dragons portraits in Heavenly Dragon Cloister, after reaching this place and seeing the reliefs for the first time. This was something that was simply impossible. The middle-aged monk instantly understood that things were bad and executed the other dragon forms of 100 dragons portraits, in hopes of solving the transformations of the dragon force in Qin Mu's fist. His cultivation was higher than Monk Ming Xin's, and he had awakened his 6 directions divine treasure, which meant he had an extraordinary ability. His vital chi could materialize to form divine arts. Heavenly Dragon Cloister was one of the cloisters in Great Thunderclap Monastery. The monks cultivating here were mostly in 5 elements, or 6 directions realm. There were some stronger practitioners of 7 stars realm, like monk Xin, who had incinerated himself earlier. Of course, the abbot of Heavenly Dragon Cloister was very powerful, but at this moment he, old monk Jingming, was accompanying old Ma and blind with the other old monks, and was unable to excuse himself. The middle-aged monk was considered one of the more outstanding experts in Heavenly Dragon Cloister, but his vital chi cultivation couldn't be compared to that of Qin Mu. The transformations in his dragon force were also way inferior. Crap, I can't solve them. Monk Tan Xin's expression changed, and his chest exploded with a bang. 45 dragon forces burst from his body, and 49 ferocious dragons' heads opened their jaws wide to roar angrily at everyone. The blood light scattered all around, and a lot of fresh blood flew in all directions, landing on the faces and clothes of the monks. Qin Mu shook his head. If you don't have any murderous intentions, I will hold back and not harm your life. But if you insist on killing me, I won't hold back. The monks were all in a daze. Suddenly, a monk pointed at Qin Mu and said in anger, he used techniques of the devil path to kill senior brother Tan Xin. What he used were the techniques of the devil path. Qin Mu's gaze landed on him, and he said slowly, Thunderclap 8 strikes is a devil skill. I'm in 5 elements realm, and he is in 6 directions realm, and I used the same move as him to kill him, yet you guys don't want to admit that his skill was inferior, so you say it's the devil path. Rulai, your disciples have shamed you. Deluding people with lies, I'll kill you, a voice shouted out angrily, and a yellow-robed monk came rushing over with boundless vital chi surging about him. He had the cultivation of 6 directions realm, and his technique was incomparably overbearing, his power like rolling thunder. Qin Mu didn't bother to look at him, and raised his hand to send Junior Protector Sword out. Sword lights burst forth as the sun set in surging river. The yellow-robed monk was instantly filled with thousands of holes and his corpse landed on the ground. With an ice-cold expression, Qin Mu said, this is Sunset Sword skill of Yuyuan Empire. A monk pounced behind him, wanting to land a fatal blow, but a gate suddenly opened behind Qin Mu's body. It was Gate of Heaven influence. The monk rushed into the gate, and saw the light of a lamp shining in the distance. The soul of that monk was instantly sucked into Yudu, and left with the boat. Qin Mu closed the Gate of Heaven influence behind him and said coldly, this isn't a technique of the devil path as well, this is Yudu's Gate of Heaven influence. Kill this devil. Another monk came rushing over, and Qin Mu punched in his direction. Samo Yi. The soul of that monk was dragged out of his body and disintegrated in the air. Qin Mu then said angrily, this is a technique of the devil path. Do you understand? I'm absolutely not an expert in techniques of the devil path. Kill the heavenly devil cult master, and take revenge for our senior brothers. Everyone's emotions were stirred up at the same time, and they came swarming over at Qin Mu like bees. He frowned slightly, and his body trembled. 1,000-armed Buddha burst forth, and the Buddha rays shone brilliantly, with incomparably resounding Buddha voice lingering around Heavenly Dragon's cloister. Qin Mu was like an unmovable Buddha, withstanding attacks from all directions. With exploding bangs that rang out continuously, the monks flew off in all directions. They smashed into the dragon pillars, and some of them split into 3-5 pieces on the spot. Qin Mu shook his body, and the 1,000 arms that were both in front and behind him vanished. The Buddha rays also vanished. He swept his gaze over the monks that were lying everywhere, and brushed his sleeves. This is the Thunderclap 8 strikes of your great Thunderclap monastery. Is this technique of the devil path too? Technique is only righteous when used righteously, when used for evil, even Thunderclap 8 strikes, or Rulai's Mahayana Sutra will become of the devil. Old Ma coughed and looked towards the flabbergasted old monk Jingming beside him. Senior brother, your heavenly dragon cloister is getting a little messy. I think we should go take a stroll through Heart Meditation Cloister. Old monk Jingming looked at Qin Mu resentfully. Most of the monks that Qin Mu had beaten and killed were his disciples. However, since old Ma and blind was beside him, he didn't dare to make a move recklessly. He was especially worried about the blind man beside him. Even though that man's eye sockets were empty, he could feel a murderous intent that circled his throat whenever he wanted to make a move. If he really dared to make a move, he was certain that the bamboo cane of this blind man would pierce his throat the next instant. His Rulai's Mahayana Sutra had a flaw which left a weak spot at his throat, and no matter how he changed it, it didn't get fixed. The other old monks of Heavenly Dragon Cloister also didn't dare to make a move. While standing beside Old Ma and Blind, they felt like there were two Mount Merus pressing down on them. If they made a move, their bodies would be smashed into pieces. Cold sweat broke out on Monk Jingming's forehead, and he said, "Junior brother, your disciple killed my monks of Heavenly Dragon Cloister, and even destroyed some 100 dragons' portraits." Old Ma remained silent. Blind said calmly, as he propped himself on his bamboo cane, "Senior brother Jingming, Heavenly Dragon Cloister being destroyed is your own fault. If you didn't point out that Mua was the devil cult master, this wouldn't have happened. Don't blow things up. Once it happens, the mess won't be so easy to clean up." A droplet of cold sweat rolled down Monk Jingming's forehead as he coughed. His voice was like a loud bell when he said, "Cult Master Qin is a guest from afar, do not be impudent, fall back." Once he had said that, the monks over by the reliefs seemed relieved and immediately helped their companions that were laying on the ground. Old Ma said, "Mua, come back." Blind beamed at the youth. "You fought, destroyed, and also lectured. We are guests, so it's not good to be too impudent." Old Ma said we should take a stroll around Heart Meditation Cloister. Won't you come along? Qin Mu acknowledged their words and bowed to Monk Ming Xin. "Little monk, if you can't stay in Great Thunderclap Monastery any longer, come find me in Heavenly Saint Cult." Monk Ming Xin was bewildered. "How can I not stay here any longer? My master treats me very well, and these senior and junior brother take good care of me as well. I won't turn bad. You too, don't be the devil cult master anymore. Won't it be better to abandon evil and turn good? Buddhism says that the sea of bitterness has no bounds, repent and the shore will be at hand." Qin Mu shook his head and said firmly, "You are a true monk. Sometimes, true monks are not tolerated in the monastery of fake monks. When the monastery can't tolerate you anymore, you will have to go find your Tat Hotter, your perfect awakening. Read less Buddhist scriptures, most of those that write them have never been Rulai, and if they can't become Buddha, how can they guide you down that path? Destroy the Buddha and Great Thunderclap Monastery in your heart, and you will become your own Buddha, the world will become your Great Thunderclap Monastery, and all living things will become your Tao friends, your senior brothers." He stretched his finger out and touched Monk Ming Xin on his heart with a smile. "Here lies a real Buddha. Brat as the..." He then touched Monk Ming Xin at the heart of his brows. "Here lies a fake Buddha. Don't let your belief become your devil, your restraints, and the obstruction to your perception. What you should do is lift your head to face the world and have a clear conscience. Place a scale in your heart, and let it become your principle when weighing good and bad, right and wrong, righteous and evil, Buddha and devil. Walk outside more to see what people do, and not what the Buddhist scriptures say. It's impossible to become Buddha by only staying in the monastery and thinking about good and evil." Monk Ming Xin's mind was blown, and he seemed to be deep in thought. Qin Mu turned around to walk to Old Ma. On his way, he greeted Monk Jingming. "Sorry great masters for disturbing your peace." Monk Jingming returned his greeting and said, "Devil cult master is courteous. Their cultivations aren't there, and cult master's devil nature is too great. You're good at bewitching people's hearts and ruthless in your attacks, a natural old devil." Qin Mu shook his head. "The cultivation of my mind is still shallow. If people want to kill me, I can only retaliate. The state of mind of you great masters is profound. If people wanted to kill you, would you retaliate?" When he finished saying this, his gaze turned unfriendly and Junior Protector sword came whooshing out of its sheath. The gaze of old monk Jingming and the rest landed on the shining sword blade, and they shook their heads slowly. Qin Mu returned the treasured sword back into its sheath, and let out a pent-up breath before smiling. "I thought that you eminent monks that have achieved Tao had achieved the state of not being afraid of life and death, not afraid of honor and disgrace. But you are still the same as me, an ordinary human that has a devil nature. Farewell. Grandpa Ma, Grandpa Blind, what kind of place is Heart Meditation Cloister? Old Ma brought them away while saying, Heart Meditation Cloister is where Great Thunderclap Monastery's monks cultivate their hearts. The cultivation in that place is different from here. For cultivation, monks will first cultivate their hearts. There are many monks there who cultivate unspoken meditation. Blind let out a sigh of relief and smiled. It's good that they don't cultivate speaking. This saves the effort of talking about the acts of monks in reality, while they talk about Buddhist teachings. After all, when you want to talk to them about tidying up their sect, they will talk to you about Buddhist teachings. If you talk to them about logic, they will talk to you about Buddhist teachings. But if you talk to them about Buddhist teachings, they will come over to beat you. These Buddhist believers can't even do what they preach. Old Ma hesitated and stopped. In that case, let's not go to Heart Meditation Cloister. Qin Mu was bewildered and cried out, Are the monks in Heart Meditation Cloister like this as well? Old Ma shook his head. There's still some who don't cultivate unspoken meditation in Heart Meditation Cloister. It's good that you tagged along, since if I was the only one here, they would definitely come to nag at me. But you are the devil cult master, so they will want to nag at you more, and if they can't convince you, what happened in Heavenly Dragon Cloister will be reenacted. Blind shook his head. In that case, let's not go. Great Thunderclap Monastery is full of fake monks, with few that can do what they preach. As long as you say that they do something wrong, they will quarrel with you. The hardest thing to do is to convince a person. They can't break the obstruction in their awareness and always like to complicate the simplest logic, leaving you befuddled. If you followed their topic, you would have certainly lost. Old Ma said, the best logic is still in truth. In the end, it comes down to what is done. In this world, there truly are not many real monks. Most of them are fake. Those that open their mouths and quote classics like spewing out a deluge of heavenly flowers, they only know how to speak and not do. It's already fortunate if there is one true monk among 100. Rulai is old and has neglected the teachings. Lately, he seems to be lacking the strength even if he has the mind to do it. Old Ma originally didn't like to talk much, but since he was revisiting his old haunts, his words subconsciously grew in number. Monk Jingming looked at them walking farther away, then glanced at his own companions in dismay. Evil nature, this heavenly devil cult master truly has an evil nature. An old monk sighed. Rulai wants him to stay in the monastery, but I'm afraid this isn't the luck of our Great Thunderclap Monastery. Another abbot said, I can't understand why Rulai wants him to stay. He's the devil cult master, which devil cult master of heavenly devil cult is easily swayed. Old monk Jingming said, you guys don't have to guess blindly. Rulai's intention is to use Buddhist teachings to influence him, to let him know the vastness of Buddhism, abandoning evil to become good, converting him to Buddhism. Rulai had thought to take him as a disciple, yet heavenly devil cult's patriarch reached out first and snatched him away. The old monks were all bewildered. They knew that he and old Rulai had a deep master and disciple bond, so many things were not hidden from him. Because of this, they trusted his words and asked, there was such an incident. That Kakara staff is a keepsake, yet he gave it away to a monkey. Rulai felt that the destiny was broken, so he didn't go find him. But actually, there's a second reason as to why Rulai made him stay. Heavenly Devil cult is starting to prosper, because they have this cult master Qin. He also has a close relationship with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. As to the snow disaster, Heavenly Devil Cult Master was far-sighted and ordered the entire Devil Cult to support the Emperor in sending disaster relief. Now, with the Emperor and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor as the arms of Heavenly Devil Cult, it will definitely prosper. The old monks' expressions changed, and they stamped their feet. What must we do? Old monk Jingming said, if this cult master Qin got trapped in Great Thunderclap Monastery, the momentum of Heavenly Devil Cult will be broken. With the devil weakened and Buddha rising, our Great Thunderclap Monastery will be fortuitous. Even if Heavenly Devil Cult will try to find another Devil Cult Master, they probably won't find another one as outstanding as him. As for the third intention, there seemed to be Buddha rays flickering on and off in his eyes as he said faintly, is because of the next Rulai. Old Rulai didn't have the boldness of heavenly devil cult patriarch to choose a little brat as the cult master, but he still admires Ma Wangshan and feels that is the most suitable to inherit his cassock and alms bowl. What a pity. The other old monks looked at one another and said in unison, what a pity. Little monk Ming Xin came walking over muddle-headed and said to old monk Jingming, Master, I. Old monk Jingming saw that he was in a daze and straightened him out. Good child, you have been bewitched by the words of heavenly devil cult master. A devil is best at bewitching the hearts of people, and it's even worse if he's the heavenly devil cult master. But I feel that what he said made sense. Old monk Jingming laughed loudly. Good child, there are many Buddhist scriptures in our monastery that judge devils. Go and see what your seniors say. You will then straighten out your thinking without me needing to enlighten you. Monk Ming Xin was still ill at ease. Old monk Jingming frowned. He could see that the impact Qin Mu's words had brought to this little monk was too strong. So it was best to give him tasks that didn't require much thinking. Go and help your senior brothers up, then lift the dragon pillars up. Even though they are broken, they can still be fixed. Monk Ming Xin acknowledged his words and went to help his senior brothers of Heavenly Dragon Cloister and treat the injured. However, those monks didn't give him a pleasant look and drove him away by brushing their sleeves. Monk Ming Xin was stunned. He went to lift up the collapsed dragon pillar, but a couple monks walked over and pushed him to the side. When he squeezed forward again, he was pushed down to the ground. He looked at everyone in a daze before getting up quietly to go to the depository of Buddhist texts to read Buddhist scriptures. However, he couldn't absorb any logic that he read. Old monk Jingming was tidying up Heavenly Dragon Cloister when he suddenly saw monk Ming Xin carrying a little bundle down the mountain. His heart moved slightly, and he called out, Ming Xin, have you brought your Buddhist scriptures? Monk Ming Xin stopped and said, Master, I brought a heart sutra. Monk Jingming nodded. Go down the mountain and return back soon. The Sea of Bitterness has no bounds. Repent and Mount Meru will be at hand, where Great Thunderclap Monastery is. Monk Ming Xin knelt down and gave 2 kowtows to him before turning to leave. Behind him, the bell of Great Thunderclap Monastery rang as the sun was high up in the middle of the sky. Its light cast a long shadow of the little monk down the mountain. This video will end here.